Hello everyone, this is Sasha Bykov. I really wanted to try a new format, and I also wanted to just to speak about the topic that has been bothering me a lot since I came here in the Netherlands. Usually when I've seen a nationality gap, I usually filled it with the word Russian, which is my nationality, as I thought it is actually quite a mix-up between how, let's say, people in Russia define nationality and how it is defined in, let's say, English-speaking world, at least. Let's start with how nationality is defined in English-speaking countries. So this is the term nationality, and in English-speaking world it has two synonyms. I don't know. Well, the first synonym is ethnicity, and the second one is citizenship. Just in case, ethnicity is related to your ethnic group. Ethnic group is usually defined by your language, heritage, ancestors, and stuff like this. And citizenship is basically defined by your state, country that you live in, and the legislative stuff that directs you to that country. Nationality and citizenship are the same term because legally it's the same term. Word nationality in Russian means Национальность, and this word is the same. It's a synonym for word ethnos, which means ethnicity in English. In Russian, word nationality and ethnicity means the same. We also have word citizenship, which is гражданство in Russian. And this word means a completely different thing. So these two are not related. So if we look at the whole scheme now, we see a mix-up. In English-speaking world, nationality means citizenship, more or less. And in Russian-speaking world, nationality means ethnos. So, I'm not the only one who noticed that kind of confusion, and I guess what our legislators or our official guys or whatever decided to do is in English word nationality, and they translate it as гражданство, only to not create a mix-up in our language. You would say, does that make sense? I guess so. And to prove my point, I will show you my actual passport. You should see that there is a term гражданство, which means citizenship, and a term nationality, and they are next to each other. So this is how they translated it. In terms of language, it is not correct, but in terms of in law terms, in legislative terms, I guess it should be correct. And you see it says Russian Federation here, so it means nationality, not ethnicity as it should be in Russian language, because otherwise it would be state in Russian, not Russian Federation. Well, for English-speaking world, this entire situation is more or less stable and correct, but for Russian-speaking countries, it is not. For example, what if you are born in Russia, but you were born in a place called Tatarstan, where most of the second biggest ethnic group of Russia lives. This group is called Tatars. In Russia, people don't usually call themselves Russians unless they are ethnic Russians. That means that we, by default, define ourselves by our ethnicity. We, I mean citizens of Russia. So if I'm ethnic Russian, I call myself Russian. If I'm ethnic Tatar, I call myself Tatar, and so on. To show you more or less how it works, I prepared another comparison table. Let's say if you are ethnic Tatar, but you are citizen of Russia, which you are, you would call yourself Tatarin in Russian, and in English it would be Tatar. That would be when you are referring to your ethnicity. But when you speak about your citizenship or nationality in English-speaking world, you would call yourself Russian. And the word for Russian citizenship in Russian is Россиянин. What is interesting, I find, is when you are an ethnic Russian. In that case, we have different words for ethnic Russian and Russian in terms of Russian citizenship. So for ethnic Russian, there is word Русский, and for Russian citizen, there is word Россиянин. Those are completely two different terms. Россиянин means citizen of Russia, and Русский means ethnic Russian. Russia in Russian means Россия, and Россиянин is a derivative of that word. What if you are ethnic Ukrainian, but you live in Russia and you are citizen of Russia? Let's say your parents came to Russia and you were born in Russia, but you are still ethnic Ukrainian. In that case, legally you would be Russian and you would be Россияnin, so citizen of Russia, but your ethnicity would still be Ukrainian, or more correctly, ethnic Ukrainian, and in Russian it would sound like Ukrainец. And also another example, what if you are ethnic Russian and you live in Ukraine? People would still refer to you as ethnic Russian, so Русский, even if you are a citizen of Ukraine. Quick example again, let's say you were born in France and you are ethnic French and you moved to Spain. People would still call you French, even if you have kids there or whatever, and you changed your citizenship. Russians would still call you French because that's your ethnicity. And by default, when people refer to Russians as Russians, we think of ethnic Russians first. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, it's just how it is. What I also wanted to say is that how exactly that kind of situation happened. I guess the reason is the Soviet Union, because back then everyone was a citizen of a big country called Soviet Union, and the word citizenship was in use because country was big and very diverse. People were defined by their nationality, so their ethnic group that they were living in, because mostly certain ethnic groups lived in certain regions. Some of them became countries after the Soviet Union collapsed, some of them stayed in Russia, and that's why I guess new country Russia had to come up with separate words for ethnic Russians and citizens of Russia. What I also wanted to say is that, for example, when I was born, I got my birth certificate, and I was born already in Russia, so a year after Soviet Union collapsed. In my birth certificate, such as in any other birth certificate that was given in the Soviet Union, my mother and my father were both mentioned in this birth certificate, and their ethnicities were also mentioned there, their nationalities. And by adding these two nationalities, my nationality was created. For me it was easy because both my mother and father were ethnic Russians, but sometimes, well, let's say if my father was Belarusian and my mother was Ukrainian, my nationality or ethnicity would be Belarusian Ukrainian, or mother was Belarusian Ukrainian and father was Russian. Then the workers in the hospital would be very confused what to write there. In more recent years, they don't do it anymore. They only mention citizenship of a father, citizenship of a mother, and citizenship of a child, which is always certain. I guess this is what I wanted to tell you. Thank you very much if you got to this point. My name is Sasha Bykov. I hope this video was educational. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Goodbye.